30th December 2022 was the time when the entire world and cricketing fans across the globe woke up to horrific images and news of Rishabh Pant's near fatal car crash. You know, that one sight of seeing his luxury car sent shiver down everyone's spine because that wasn't the news we were looking to wake up to just before ringing in the new year. A lot has happened since then in Indian cricket. You know, we have participated in two ICC events, Asia Cup, we have won medals at the Asian Games, and there has been change of guard, when it comes to chairman of selectors, captaincy debates and all those things. So today in this special broadcast for Cricket Next, I, Sahil Malhotra, welcome all of you as we'll be rewinding 2023, the year it was, the World Cup heartbreak, WTC final heartbreak, IPL, the Thalla fever, and all those things which happened in the last 12 months. So first, let me welcome all our panelists, starting with K. Srinivas Rao, Network 18 Group Sports Editor, noted columnist, cricket commentator and journalist Chetan Narula, and our very own Cricket Next editor Vineet Ramakrishnan. So welcome, gentlemen. Before we get into party mode, I think it's time to rewind a bit and look back at the year it was. So firstly, Border Gavaskar Trophy was well and truly our first assignment in the year gone by. All eyes were on that series, how we will fare and what kind of pitches will be on offer, because a lot was all at stake. A lot was at stake, basically. A WTC final spot was there for the taking. So first, I'll come to Vineet. Vineet, you started the ball rolling. You rolled the ball out for Cricket Next when you covered that opening game where Rohit Sharma scored a brilliant 100. Chetan was there with you for that match as well. So, just your thoughts, starting the year, starting the red ball season with the Indian cricket team.
Oh, basically, even before that, series started, it was all the talks that you mentioned about the doctored pitches, how it would be. A lot was on stake for India, of course. They would need to win 3-1 to make it to the final. If not was the case, and there was a lot of those talks about the kind of pitches that India would bring into play for the Australians, and more or less it was the case, right? 3 days. In under 3 days, it was done and dusted. But Australia had lost the game even before the series had started, with all those talks about doctored pitches, and plus those selective watering. There was also that controversy of Ravindra Jadeja bowling with something extra on his hand, and all of those things. Australia were down and out in that game. For India, look, there was a lot, as you mentioned. Rishabh Pant's void was a big thing, big void to fill. But then again, you had the trifecta of Akshar Patel, Ravichandran Ashwin, and Ravindra Jadeja, just too strong, whatever you may want to call it, tailor-made pitches or tailor-made series, so to speak. But the class of Indian team was there to see, and they were near invincible. And that Nagpur test was just start of what transpired in that entire series, and it was a very good day from an Indian perspective. Lot of controversies also was there, but shut out for a while for the Australian team there.
Chetan, now quickly, I'll take your quick comment. That he just mentioned the Rishabh Pant sized hole. It was a big hole to fill. And we saw that the way we selected the squad for that series, you had someone like Ishan Kishan, you banked on someone like a Shreyas Iyer to give you intent lower down the order, something which was need of the hour when there wasn't any Rishabh Pant in the mix anymore. So what are your thoughts, and, just reflecting back on that series and the madness and the turn and the minefields which were on offer?
Well, first of all, it was, कैसे कहूँ मैं? There's a phrase in what we, sometimes write as columnists or journalists, car crash. Rishabh Pant का जो accident था, बहुत obviously दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण था, और now obviously a year on, we are looking at his images where he's close to fitness, and we are hoping that he comes back IPL next year and plays Ranji Trophy and then comes back to the Indian Test team. We need Rishabh Pant. लेकिन मेरे लिए तो ये पूरा साल इंडियन क्रिकेट के लिए भी कार क्रैश से कम नहीं था. You look at the WTC, you look at the World Cup, you look at what is happening in South Africa, the whole scenario, what happened before the World Cup in the West Indies, the experimentation, the confusion. So I could find very few positives for Indian cricket in this year. And it's tough to find positives when Indian cricket is so huge, so big.
Yeah,
it's a behemoth, right? It's humongous in stature, in finances, in everything. Somebody like a Michael Vaughan coming out and saying, क्या जीतते हैं ये लोग? क्या करते हैं ये लोग? They are underachievers. Michael Vaughan, with all due respect, I grew up watching him play cricket, but as a commentator, he runs off his mouth a lot, and I'm sure he'll agree to it. But he's not wrong. हम लोग क्या
Yeah,
achieve करते हैं? I mean, and I remember I was talking to Srinivas a couple of weeks after the World Cup, and my question to him was, can Indian cricket afford to lose the T20 World Cup next year? Can we really afford not to win the T20 World Cup? If Indian cricket
absolutely.
the T20 World Cup, हम लोग कर क्या रहे हैं? So
Yeah,
overall, for me, this has been a car crash of a year.
yeah,
You know, it's just like a phase. I'm not hinting at Rishabh Pant's uh, fit, near fatal accident, as you put. I'm just borrowing from it.
yeah.
From a writer's perspective, a writer's style perspective. So, but yeah, I think the Border Gavaskar Trophy was good. It was a good contest of bat and ball on the pitches that were provided. 2-1 at home against Australia on those pitches. No. 2023 में moral victory का एक trend चला है.
Yeah.
England Ashes में moral victors थे. MCG टेस्ट में पाकिस्तान ने morally जीत लिया apparently. इंडिया ने morally वर्ल्ड कप जीता है according to some ex cricketers because 10-0 हम लोगों ने किया, we were the better team on paper. तो ऑस्ट्रेलिया ने BGT morally जीत लिया था यार.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I think you make a very valid point. Those moral
4-0
victories.
उस सीरीज में 4-0 होना चाहिए था. मेरे को अच्छे
Yeah.
से याद है इंदौर टेस्ट के प्री मैच में रोहित शर्मा वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट हम अहमदाबाद में
Final.
कैसे करेंगे
Yes.
WTC फाइनल के लिए.
Yeah.
एंड देन यू लॉस्ट इंदौर एंड देन अहमदाबाद वाज ड्रॉन जिसमें उस्मान ख्वाजा ने रन्स बनाए, विराट कोहली ने रन्स बनाए, बट दैट वाज अ वेरी बैड पिच.
Yeah.
और आपको एंड उस पिच का फायदा क्यों हुआ कि आप सीरीज 2-2 नहीं हारना चाहते थे क्योंकि आपको क्वालिफाई करना था.
Correct.
सो फॉर मी, अगर हम मॉरली हम देखें तो ऑस्ट्रेलिया वन द बीजीटी मॉरली.
Yeah.
2-1 on those pitches. Nah. But
I'll quickly take Srini's comment now, because pitch, quote unquote, is going to be mentioned in every talking point in this segment
Oh.
because that has been the year so far. A certain
Yeah.
individual right next to the 22 yards. Srini, I clearly remember during the Border Gavaskar Trophy, you had put out multiple tweets when that doctoring, watering, and all those tongues were wagging from the Australian media about how we are using the home advantage unfairly. How do you weigh in on such comments? When visiting press kind of just makes a big issue out of absolutely nothing because we were there, and you can only tinker with the pitches to a certain extent. You can't have those selective watering. Yes, you do create rough when it is required, and that is what home advantage is all about. So why was that so much hue and cry? And I clearly remember you were very agitated by those comments ki boss ye chal kya raha hai yaar, ye rukte kyun nahi hai?
नहीं वो I think I remember we were all in Delhi at that time, right? Vineet was covering the test match and we were there in Delhi and I think I lost it when I read that 2/3 watering वाला. वो मतलब ये क्या पागलपन है? आप क्या measuring tape लेके घूम रहे थे वहाँ पे कि इतना पानी डालना और यहाँ तक आके रोक देना? So that was stupid. See, Australian media by and large has been the 12th man of the team, has been an extension of their playing 11, right? Go back to whenever you can, like, whether it's 2001, the build-up that happened, when Steve Waugh's team came here, they lost, they went in 2004 when they came back, and, again, that Nagpur test match, that green wicket, Saurav Ganguly not playing that test, and the Aussie media like literally kind of saying that the captain got scared and kind of stayed away. That to the extent that they actually blame Saurav. So from then on, if you see, the intense rivalry has been fueled largely by their media. See, relatively Indian media is very respectful, very quiet. Okay, and
Yeah.
I mean that's it's in all honesty. I'm not saying because we are part of the ecosystem. The Aussie media actually, take a leaf from the ashes and how they go about. I remember in 2017 Bangalore Test match. Yeah, Bangalore it was, right, where the
Yeah. Clark, I
what
think.
was it?
Michael Clark.
Huh?
The Michael
Sorry?
Clark. The Michael Clark
Yeah.
spell, Bangalore.
No. I'm not about the spell. The what? You were looking at the TV umpire. What was it called? I was
Oh,
blinded.
brain
No,
fade. The brain fade.
brain fade. Sorry,
Rain fade,
Huh.
yeah.
Brain fade moment. There, in that series, if you see the start of it, they compared Virat Kohli to Donald Trump. If you remember, there was a headline: Virat Kohli is the Donald Trump of Indian cricket, right? So that this is how they have always been. And let me be very honest, it adds charm to the to a series. Suddenly you feel like, oh, the battle is here. Like, for example, when the Aussies arrived here, even their broadcaster Fox jumped in. Jumped media jumped in. The journalists who were traveling with the team kind of, took that pitch by a storm. See how little things, kind of, I mean, they gave us a picture as if they had mastered R Ashwin by taking that, what was that
Bithia,
spinner?
Mahesh Bithia, Baroda spinner.
Sasta Ashwin, huh?
Mahesh
I'm
Bithia.
sorry, by kind of, asking for that bowler. So look at the build up that they give. That's also a beauty of how they, kind of pursue their test cricket. Yes, to an extent, that two-third watering of the pitch and all was irritating. But the fact is, there is nothing wrong in creating a pitch that you want to play at home.
Yeah,
That is not a big question. The big question is India capable of themselves playing on a pitch that they think can be difficult for the opposition? And
yeah,
in that, I think Indore and Ahmedabad, the two test matches, were actually an eye opener for India. Forget putting Australia under pressure, because if you think in the 90s under Mohammad Azharuddin with Anil Kumble, Venkatapati Raju, Rajesh Chauhan, it was pursued that these kind of heavily turning tracks would be in India's favor. That is because you had what you call is Diggaj batsmen who would stand there on pitches like those and score daddy hundreds. And let's
yeah,
be very honest, in this Indian team, I feel an absolute dearth when it comes to playing quality spin, which is something that we have discussed in the past.
yeah,
So these were the kind of things that put India, on sort of a dicey wicket all the time.
yeah,
And what eventually the big picture that it gave to, which we can actually conclude in 2003, which actually could be a part of what Michael Vaughan is also trying to say, is आप ना घर के ना घाट के kind of, ना आप घर के बनाए हुए pitches पे खेल पाते हो, neither are you, comfortable playing at home on the kind of pitches you think at one time was your strength. Neither are you comfortable playing against the fast moving ball in Centurion,
yeah.
right? And I think that is where the story of Indian cricket is stuck.
Now, Srini, it has been the nature of Indian cricket that between all this madness, there comes that IPL balm for a couple of months where everyone tends to forget everything and just focus on that 40 over madness every day for close to 2 months. And, it's just a different sort of vibe. And before we move on to the WTC final, which Srini covered from the Oval, he was there for 6-7 days covering, another unsuccessful shot at ICC trophy. I'll take Vinny's quick comments because he was there covering the IPL. He, saw the Thala madness from close quarters in Chennai. We were together for close to a week where, we just went the length and breadth of the city just to explore what MS Dhoni actually means in the city, what he eats, what he drinks, what he does when. And I think it was an experience. It was a different experience. I think it comes close to covering a World Cup because Dhoni in Chennai is a different vibe. And Vinny, you would agree with that.
Most definitely. And look, IPL in general, it's, when it started, you called it the cricket carnival. It actually is like a carnival. And we've been a bit spectac about, India's 2023 campaign and everything. Nothing, no skepticism there in terms of IPL. It's fun. And yeah, that Dhoni madness, that was I think the highest point there for you and me. Of course, we both were there for the qualifiers. And this IPL was all about Dhoni. How this 2023 was everything about cricket and the ODI World Cup. This IPL was all about Dhoni. Will he retire? Will he not? This is farewell match or everything. Every time he came out to bat, even during the league phases, Ravindra Jadeja got booed because he was stopping Dhoni from coming in that way. I mean, that was the kind of craze it was, and it was kind of a culmination of all that madness, all that fervor, all that fan following that Dhoni had, and we witnessed it firsthand. It was maddening. I mean, madness is in a way understatement. We were in June, we were there in May, it was sweltering hot. Yet you had people lining up for watching MS Dhoni practice sessions and everything. The streets were all. I mean, you, me were part of that procession. When they played the final, it was just amazing. MS Dhoni, the kind of I don't know. Like I personally, I'm from a generation where we've seen, Sachin Tendulkar play. Srini and Chetan probably they would know in terms of, the kind of madness Sachin Tendulkar had all over India or even Mumbai. That Chennai was kind of a microcosm of all that.
Yeah,
I know comparison might not be the fair one, but that's what it felt like.
yeah.
Nothing greater. The kind of fan following that humble man, the great one, had, and we were fortunate enough
Absolutely.
to witness.
And it was one of a kind tournament where a final was played across 2 days. Rain
Nowadays,
in Ahmedabad during that time, crowd rushing for cover, all sort of administrative mess unfolding, water, kind of flowing through the stairs. It was a messy affair, but it had a very sweet ending because last ball finish. Narendra Modi Stadium, IPL final, MS Dhoni with the hands on the trophy again, sharing it with Ambati Raidu, who was playing his last season. But those were
and
like
Jadeja of all people, who was a villain last year, emerging as the hero there in that final.
Very quickly after the IPL, the mood kind of shifted to the WTC final. I clearly remember covering a BCCI meeting. You were there with me, where players were kind of leaving in batches for the preparations for the WTC final because not much time was left in between those two tournaments. Now, Srini, very quickly, I'll bring you in. And WTC final, you were there. We had fair share of injury concerns. Shreyas wasn't available. KL Rahul wasn't available, who injured himself. We'll discuss the injuries and comebacks in detail. But I think right now, let's just focus on the WTC final. I'll bring in Chetan also after Srini is done. So Srini, first, how was it covering a test match in England? Because I know you were pretty excited for that thing. You didn't do that for a long time now, and you were looking forward to covering a game in England, a red ball game in England. India, clouds, pitch, R Ashwin. I think that probably sums up and gives you the cue for what to say next.
I thought we were like, kind of we were there. We were there and we really had a chance. And I remember even on the game, uh, there was, I don't know. I mean, I didn't attend the press conferences and all of the Indian team. I just like saw it from a distance, and but I could always see that there was some bit of confidence reflecting in these boys, and kind of they had managed to reach there for the second consecutive time. Uh, First time having lost, I thought they would be more determined to kind of set things right. Did they have the attack to pull it off? Yes, of course they did. And then that same attack, you went ahead, you kind of did all the right things. I mean, you kind of uh, I remember on the eve of the game, Rohit Sharma kind of came to address that press conference, and he was very, what to say, like kind of he was not very forthcoming on what the 11 is going to be, but he and Rahul Dravid, both of them sounded like they were much in control. And then you win the toss and you take a decision like that. You just drop that one bowler, who was, what were you thinking? I mean, the local Englishmen actually don't go by the weather, kind of a forecast that is usually comes out. I mean, I was there and I remember, because whenever on Cricket Next we would do the show, I had to come all the way out of the oval, right? So I
Yeah,
had to literally come outside the oval on the road and
and the
then
weather
start.
would change.
Exactly. Boss, there have been times like, when I'm walking out of the media box to come out of the oval, it's like literally in those 5 to 7 minutes, it's been like hot, hotter, hottest. Kind of the sun, like every single day starting day one, it just went hot, hotter, hottest. It was almost like the weather telling Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid, अच्छा बेटा रुको मैं बताता हूँ तुमको, right? तुम इतने शाणे हो ना, रुको मैं बताता हूँ. So it's almost like it was a joke for not picking R Ashwin. And if I have to put down, if I have to go back and what Travis said, 163,
Yeah,
153,
163,
160,
163.
Yeah.
yeah, and then Steve Smith, of course. क्या बोलना है? That's where you lost the game. That's where you lost the game. And the
I think
more they stuck around, the more you missed Ashwin. And
you know
unfortunate after that.
I think there's no better gentleman than finding adjectives for what happened with R. Ashwin during that period. And he has been finding different reasons to just vent his frustration out. And I think he's not done yet. So I'll request Chetan Narla to
Yeah.
kind of that Ashwin thing. We have read numerous Ashwin interviews after that WTC final where he spoke about not having friends in the dressing room, how he felt lonely at times, how he would take these things on the chin. But still, Still, they didn't play him. They lost the final, and we kind of expect them to do the same again in the second test too. So, what are your thoughts on how Indian cricket continues to disappoint when it comes to picking Ashwin and disrespecting him? I'm borrowing Chetan's words, disrespecting him. So, Chetan.
Yeah, I mean, we disrespect him. I mean, a bowler who's picked almost 500 wickets, and he will finish with 500 plus. Where he'll finish eventually, whether he'll get to 600 or not, I don't know. But 500 to easy, na? He's not far away from 500. I think in the England series,
488?
he'll get
489, and I think he picked one.
490.
490, I think.
490 now. एक विकेट लिया ना पिछले मैच में.
हाँ,
और
490.
लोग हैं वो, अभी हम होपिंग कोई आए कमेंट करने के लिए, बट वो लोग हैं कि अरे उसका एवरेज ये है, उसका एवरेज ये है. 2 कैच तो ड्रॉप हो गए उस पिच पे सेंचुरियन में. जो 492 हो सकता था वो 490 पे रह गया. वो तो कोई काउंट करता नहीं है. So it's okay. I mean, this is part of the game. You can't cry for dropped catches and all. But look, Ravichandran Ashwin has not been treated fairly. Indian cricket doesn't understand Ravindra Jadeja, wo to chhod hi do, but doesn't respect Ravichandran Ashwin. India has played 6 test matches in England since 2021. And Ashwin has not played in a single test match in those 6. I mean, that is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Are you telling me tomorrow कि Nathan Lyon को Australia will drop if some left-arm spinner comes along who takes a few wickets in Australia? No, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And ठीक है. I'm not saying कि Ravindra Jadeja is not a great spinner, but he's a great spinner in Indian conditions. In overseas conditions, he's nothing more than a spin bowling all-rounder. So, yeah, I mean, this is not really about Jadeja. This is about how Ashwin has been mistreated. According to me, he is one of the top 2-3 names on the Test 11, any Test 11 on the team sheet, along
Irrespective
with Virat.
of the conditions.
Irrespective of conditions, opposition, where you are playing, he has to play. He simply has to play. आप कल विराट कोहली पे क्वेश्चन मार्क तो नहीं लगाओगे ना कि यार विराट कोहली को हम ओवरसीज खिलाएं या घर पे खिलाएं, ओवर क्या हम रोहित को 4 पे बैटिंग कराएं या श्रेयस को 4 पे बैटिंग कराएं, क्योंकि पिछले 3 साल से विराट ने सेंचुरी नहीं बनाई है. No, those question marks did not arise, right? So why with Ashwin? Because he's also a bona fide great of the game.
Absolutely.
So I feel that he's not been respected enough. He's not been given that kind of stature, that status. People assume, oh, you know what? He's playing in India, so picking those wickets is very, very easy. No, boss.
It's not.
The day Ashwin hangs up his boot, आपको spinner नहीं मिलने वाला है.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a spinner to take 400 wickets, 300 wickets in Test cricket. So, what happens is कि जब वो चीज हमारे पास होती है ना, हमें उसकी वैल्यू नहीं होती है. जब वो चीज चली जाती है, हमें उसकी वैल्यू तब रियलाइज होती है. आप यही देख लो कि संजू सैमसन has a fan club. Why does Ravichandran Ashwin doesn't have a fan club?
So for our viewers, it's a gentle and stern reminder that Sanju Samson and R. Ashwin are Chetan's favorite talking points, and they have been.
No, not at all. Sanju Samson is not a favorite talking point. Sanju Samson is not at all a talking point for me. I'm just saying Sanju Samson has achieved.
That is a talking point. That Sanju Samson is not a talking point.
Sanju Samson has achieved nothing. He's wasted his career. For me, he is equivalent to a Marcus Rashford or an Anthony Martial, who've not grown at Manchester United. कुछ achieve नहीं किया है उन्होंने. Similarly, Sanju Samson has not achieved anything in his career, apart from maybe some money and maybe a few eyeballs. But he has a fan club. He has a very devoted fan club. So, yeah. I mean, yes, that is why Ashwin comes out and says कि मुझे batsman बनना चाहिए था, and he would have been a tremendous batter. So just last point, if anyone can tell me why there is a Rohit FC, there is a Virat FC, there is a Viratian, there is a Rohitian, there is a Samsonian, there were Rishabh Pantians at one time. I remember there's a KL Rahul fan club. Why does Ravichandran Ashwin not have a fan club? I mean, that's something that is very staggering to me, because this is a bona fide great of the game, and once he hangs up his boots, we will not find another spinner to fill his boots.
I think Chetan, why he doesn't need a fan club is because he has those Kutti stories which he does during the tour, before the tour, after the tour. So he's keeping everyone engaged.
that shows
I
what
mean,
he's going to do post his career. I mean,
absolutely,
Star
and
Sports or Geo Cinema, जो भी हैं, सबका contract already drawn up है
In fact,
for Ravichandran Ashwin, and he won't probably even need that. He has his own channel. What I'm saying is, he's such an intelligent person. You just have a conversation with him, and it just comes across the way he thinks about cricket, the way he thinks about his bowling. So I don't think he's been given his due by
yeah,
Indian cricket, and that's a very very sad state of
sad,
affairs.
in
absolutely.
fact, now that
We
you
actually
say
agree.
that's a career, I want to see how
And
it turns out.
and yesterday, if people can just watch, yesterday we were talking about Rohit Sharma's captaincy and everything. And let me also say this: going ahead, I don't think Virat Kohli will become the captain of Indian Test team again. I know I would support it. I would absolutely love to see Virat as the next captain, but I don't think it's going to happen. A lot of issues in there. वो बाद में बात करेंगे. But to me, when Virat resigned from captaincy, it should not have been Rohit Sharma. It should have been Ravichandran Ashwin as the captain. Even now, there is time कि अगर Rohit Sharma steps down after the England Test series, you still have time for 1.5 years. आप अश्विन को कैप्टन बनाओ जब तक आपको कोई नया कैंडिडेट नहीं मिलता है. He deserves it. He
Yeah,
deserves it.
fair
But
point.
because of his standing, because of the way he's not liked by certain people, he's very forthright. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it will happen, but it should.
Yeah, again, there were certain things which shouldn't have happened in the year 2023, but they did, and
Oh,
we had a
lot of
fair.
things, not
We
certain
had,
things. हम गिनाने बैठेंगे ना शो उसी में खत्म हो जाएगा.
I think, for me, the way we entered 2023 on Rishabh Pant's accident news.
Yeah.
Then before that, there was suspense around Jasprit Bumrah's participation in the FTP for 2023. It was going to be a difficult year, and after that, the back trouble, which kind of resurfaced, I would say, for Shreyas Iyer, which made him miss the IPL, the WTC final. It was a difficult and a very busy year at the National Cricket Academy, and the stakeholders were worried. I wouldn't shy away from using that word because yes, it was a World Cup year. I clearly remember first week of January, the BCCI got into a huddle. They identified their core group of players for the ODI World Cup. DEXA test was reintroduced, the yo-yo test, all the fitness parameters were reintroduced, and there was that initiative that we need our players in the best possible shape. The term workload management became the most searched keyword, I would say, on Google when it came to Indian cricket team because a lot was happening on the field and off the field too. Now, I'll take Vineet's quick remark. Vineet, we were seeing the injuries. We saw what happened with Jasprit Bumrah, where I wouldn't mention his name again क्योंकि चेतन शर्मा का नाम आते ही यहाँ पर सबको गुस्सा आ जाता है. But yes, Chetan Sharma went on record and he said that they kind of rushed Jasprit Bumrah early on. But rushed was one word which was missing when it came to comebacks in 2023. Everyone followed that patient route. We have been doing extensive coverage around how the NCA and BCCI kind of handheld the players when they were down and out with injuries and how they eased them into the setup. Jasprit Bumrah, KL Rahul, Shreyas Iyer. We're talking about core of your ODI setup, boss. And all these players were down and out. But come the Asia Cup, they were ready. They were raring to go. And we finally got a full strength squad for the ODI World Cup. So we need, how difficult were
Absolutely
those
right.
days?
Look,
Not seeing
you're
them in action.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right in terms of there was some learning from what happened to Jasprit Bumrah, the debacle of the 2022 World Cup, and then even then, the first series of the year against New Zealand, he was named. Then his name was dropped. So there was a bit of learning there. Yes, unfortunate that KL Rahul and Shreyas Iyer got injured WTC during the Test series and playing the IPL. But look, that was a frustration that was simmering amongst the fans and the experts that अब तो गया यार वर्ल्ड कप तो हाथ में गया अब आपके पास बंदे नहीं है आपके पास आप वर्कलोड मैनेज नहीं कर पा रहे हो एनसीए में लोग क्या कर रहे हैं that was a simmering kind of a thing and that was the long term as you mentioned the long term process that they were following in hindsight when you look at it hindsight it all worked out well as you mentioned the Asia Cup you had a prime team ODI World Cup you had a prime team these players were given good amount of time and whatever support they needed in terms of recovery and everything and they didn't actually BCCI or whoever it was the management really didn't succumb to the pressure the outside noise so to speak so that was a very good thing and in hindsight it worked out really really well and that was the biggest learning I think what happened to Jasprit Bumrah and the debacle of the 2022 ODI World Cup unfortunate that despite this we did not make it take that trophy but otherwise from a workload management and from a very a dodgy situation to get these players up and running at the at the right amount, at the right time, was kudos to NCA, the BCA management, whoever was involved in it.
Srini, you have covered various BCCIs. I'm using the word BCCIs because they continue to take different shape and forms with every elections. New office bearers come in. There's a change of staff everywhere and anywhere possible. But from your experience of covering the Indian Cricket Board, the NCA, we have had a change of guard at the NCA too. First, it was Rahul Dravid. Then, when he was elevated to the position of the Indian coach, you had someone like a VVS Lakshman. But something did change at the NCA, right? Because there was more method than madness. And I'm sure we have discussed this numerous times that Pele, the way players were treated at the NCA, there was that some sort of discord between the various stakeholders, maybe the IPL franchises, the state teams, or the Indian team. वो कहीं ना कहीं एक तार जुड़ नहीं पा रहा था. But when it comes to people like Jasprit Bumrah, Shreyas Iyer, KL Rahul, हमें कहीं ना कहीं वो एक consistency दिखा, चाहे वो उनका workload management हो, चाहे उनका recovery protocols हो, the way they were treated, someone as gifted as a Nitin Patel or Rajni, the strength and conditioning coach, they were at the NCA leading the charge of these players. So what different approach did the BCCI take to ensure that the best players are in the top shape, and how important, because people kind of bash IPL franchises like anything, but how important was their role, someone like a Mumbai Indians, to be patient for not letting Jasprit Bumrah back on the park before the important international assignments? So how would you look at that situation?
Yeah. So, you know, there was a time, this is not too long ago, in Indian cricket, over the last, maybe 2 years ago, until 2 years ago, there was a time in Indian cricket when uh, any leading India cricketer did not want to go to the NCA.
Yeah.
Okay. I have, in fact, at one time, there are so many things that, kind of are ignored from time to time, never come out, never really come out in the public. But I remember I had written a piece some years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago, in the Times of India, where a leading India cricketer had refused to go to the NCA. He said, "Come what may, I'm not going to go there because I don't trust the place. I don't trust the people. I don't trust whose hands I am in." Okay. Which had led to a solid standoff. Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously, the NCA was headed at that time by the one and only Mr. Rahul Dravid, and a man of great stature, great integrity. So, again, somewhere there was something amiss. Cricketers refused to go there, and it all was very ugly. And the message that was always continuing to come out of a place like NCA, which was supposed to be the gold standard for India in terms of your back end, cricketing back end, the message that continued to flow from time to time was very negative, bordering on the negative all the time. So from there, I'm saying that the transition is still work in progress. I'm not saying that the NCA today has perfected anything, but I'm saying that the NCA that I had kind of seen 3 years ago, which was not a place like that. I've been tracking NCA since its earliest years, when some of the greatest names in Indian cricket have been, you name it, you just name it, kind of from the great Hanuman Singh to Raj Singh Dungarpur to Vasu Paranchpesar to Sunil Gavaskar, Ravi Shastri. We had foreign coaches coming in, foreign physiotherapists, trainers, from time to time. It's been a great coach. Good things have happened at NCA. Like
Yeah.
I have, in one of our shows, I think I've spoken about Bharat Arun. How the
Yeah.
real work that Bharat Arun did as a bowling coach was at the NCA, where his understanding of, the India's second string of bowlers who were growing at that time came from the stint that he had at the National Cricket Academy. So some really good things have happened. Some really pathetic things have also happened. For example, our level 3 coaching that happens at NCA is like, वो गोरे अंग्रेज चले गए, रेलवे छोड़ के गए kind of a
Yeah.
thing. वो वैसा ही,
Same syllabus.
वो एक,
Yeah.
हाँ, वो एक level 3 का आपके पास एक सर्टिफिकेट कोर्स है, which is God knows how pathetically old. You're still running with the same thing. You refuse to change. You refuse to understand that modern day aesthetics of sports have stepped in. Kind of, you refuse to borrow from how countries like the Center of Excellence in Australia, Brisbane, what the Loughborough University in England, or what globally, the concept of sport, how it is changing. Now, I'm not going to go too much into that, because when we talk about what's coming in 2024, there'll be things to talk about. But sticking to the point that you made, this transition, when did it begin to happen? Credit where it is due. So, when Rahul Dravid agreed to become the coach of the national team, he obviously wanted his support staff to, and that is fine. I mean, when
Yeah,
Ravi Shastri came in as the head coach, he wanted his support staff. Rahul Dravid wanted his support staff. That is bound to happen with any head coach. So when that happened, the NCA emptied up, because Rahul got some of his, kind of chief lieutenants along with him to work with the Indian team, and the NCA had to be they had to set it up afresh,
yeah,
and that's when India's most long-standing physiotherapist, was part of the 2011 World Cup campaign, has worked with the best guys, Nitin Patel, he was handpicked by the BCCI and sent to Bangalore, and, he was asked to take over the entire medical facility at the NCA, under which you took a name, fascinating guy, Rajinikanth. You go to any cricketer in India. See, these are like unsung heroes.
yeah,
You go to any cricketer, you catch hold of Shreyas Iyer, KL Rahul, Virat Kohli, sorry, not Virat Kohli, but any guy who's gone through injury or a rehab session or something. Any guy, especially who's played for Delhi, Bombay, Chennai, and all.
yeah,
He's very popular among these cricketers. Hardik Pandya, all of them, and he just knows these players. He knows how to kind of make them see things the way they need to see, and there is a great amount of bonding, and he's done some great work at the domestic level in IPL, first class cricket, players like him. So look at the handpicking of talent that began to happen at NCA, where you had a guy like Nitin Patel who understood the Indian team, and because he understood the Indian team, he understood where the players were coming from. देखो cricketer ना Sahil,
yeah,
only one thing any cricketer wants after a certain stature she achieves, is respecting their privacy. Okay, there is no cricketer, there is no sports person who doesn't go through injuries, right? And they want to share uh, their deepest insecurities, with whoever they should, but their fear is how will it be used, because it's a very, it's like, it's a kind of that one opportunity of playing for India, and the competition is,
yeah,
trust is a big factor, a very big factor. So the important thing was with Nitin, that trust was there. And with Nitin, what happened was he could identify at the grassroots level who were the kind of support staff that he could employ, where that trust factor could be stretched along. So I'll give you an example. Same time last year, at the start of the show, you said Rishabh Pant, that accident news we all woke up to. Then, if I remember, for 40 days after that accident happened, okay, newspapers flashed a headline saying 40 days later Rishabh is already standing.
yeah,
If you remember, I
yeah,
think the headline was actually on these lines: 40 days later Rishabh Pant is standing, right? Let's be very honest. That image of Rishabh on the hospital bed, okay, it was almost nightmarish to see that boy,
yeah,
like, with that thing bandaged, is that yellow mustard color rug on him, and with the news coming out what happened to his leg, the ligament tears, everything put together, the sight of that car and how badly it was mangled, all of that put together, you, me, Chetan, any of us, would we have believed if 40 days later he's standing, matlab kya, he's on his way to recovery? Honestly, a thought occurred to me, ye ladka वापस cricket खेल पाएगा क्या? That is the kind of thought that occurred to me. Will this boy come back?
yeah,
From there to, yeah, this photo where he's sitting at the auction table, all right, for Delhi Capitals, and it was your story, it was Sahil's story, where
yeah,
how he's recovering and he's close to actually kind of coming back to play the IPL this year. Even if he doesn't play the IPL, full IPL, even if he plays it in parts, the fact that he is good enough to come and stand behind the wickets in a match, a regular, is a proper, professional game, for me is like a leap of huge, kind of this thing, because I really didn't have the heart to think that this boy was going to. So from picking a leaf from there
Yeah,
to Jasprit Bumrah to a KL Rahul to a Shreyas Iyer, we have tracked this year for what the NCA was doing behind the scenes, and I love them for the simple fact that none of them were waiting to fall for a headline. Ki dekho,
yeah,
we are, the player is back. कितना गाली खाया है. And on this show, we have talked about KL Rahul when he came back for the Asia Cup and then
yeah,
decided to take the break initially. We said,
yeah,
"Oh God, has the NCA screwed it up again?" Like, right? Is the fitness okay? But we were skeptical,
yeah,
right, from time to time, and which is why have we been skeptical? Because this is the NCA we have grown up to see now over a period of time, right? Time and again the screw ups that, oh God, like, why do you rush a player? So from there on, yeah, I mean, yeah, look at this string of injuries. So from there on, NCA saying no, come what may, we will take our time in
yeah,
terms of letting a player find his way back, and however long it takes, and the results that showed in the comebacks of a KL Rahul, Hardik Pandya, Shreyas Iyer, Jasprit Bumrah, the way they were timed. Look at Bumrah, tour of Ireland, away from
yeah,
the eyes of the media, no extra pressure than necessary. 50 over game, 10 overs, you bowl as much as you can, no high pressure moments, right?
yeah,
The way they timed this is what kind of came across as a fresh breath of air, because this is not the NCA I have known over the
yeah.
last half a dozen years. So yeah, there you go. I think it's been a very, very lovely transition.
Yeah, चेतन, कमबैक्स वर देयर. सबको पता चल गया था कि बुमराह आ रहा है, केएल आ रहा है, श्रेयस आ रहा है. बट बैक ऑफ आवर माइंड हमें था यार, आ तो रहे हैं ये करण अर्जुन, बट ये आकर करेंगे क्या? That question mark was always there. And with regards to KL Rahul, we have discussed this and debated this often, that how will his mental space be after that bout with injury? It was a freak injury. Let's be very honest. It wasn't something, the ligament tear, not the ligament tear, the hamstring injury which KL actually picked up. He was chasing a ball, यार. मतलब IPL fixture के अंदर, तो उसके अंदर मतलब तब लोगों ने बोला fitness, IPL, workload, all that jazz. But I think it was very unfortunate for him to get injured in that way. But when he recovered, he came back, played that Asia Cup game. सबको पता था under what circumstances he played. But seeing these players come back and doing what they did, how heartening was it for you, Chetan, especially considering that there was a World Cup to be played in very little time?
I mean, Shreyas Iyer पे काफी समय तक डाउट रहा था.
Yeah,
लेकिन KL Rahul just came back like he had never been away. He came back in such immaculate form, और उसी मैच में उन्होंने 100 भी लगा दिया.
yeah,
Uh, honestly, after what happened in the West Indies, India's entire World Cup was banned on these players. ठीक है, हम लोग वर्ल्ड कप नहीं जीते, 10-0 हुआ. आप एक मिनट के लिए सोचो, अगर राहुल, अय्यर और बुमराह नहीं होते तो कैसा जाता हमारा वर्ल्ड कप. सो यू नो बहुत बार हमने ये बात कही थी कि द इंडियन टीम मैनेजमेंट नोज अ बिट मोर देन दे आर टेलिंग people, then they are telling fans, media, just from that particular sense. Um, so that is what they knew. They are progressing well in terms of their injuries, and to my mind, they had only a singular plan. Ki Rahul will be back, Iyer will be back, Bumrah will be back. We don't really need to plan in those directions. We only need to plan for backups.
yeah,
कि अगर ये हुआ, अगर ये हुआ, अगर ये हुआ. Now you put the West Indies experimentation into perspective. That's what it was. So एक कमी तो इंडियन क्रिकेट की हमेशा रही है कि कुछ बताएंगे नहीं. इंग्लिश क्रिकेट हो, साउथ अफ्रीकन हो, पाकिस्तान क्रिकेट भी बता देता है यार आपको कि वो क्या कर रहे हैं, टू अ ग्रेट एक्सटेंट. ऑस्ट्रेलियन क्रिकेट तो ब्लैक बोर्ड पे समझाते हैं कि ए नहीं तो बी नहीं तो सी नहीं तो डी. इंडियन क्रिकेट विल बी लाइक ये ब्लैक बोर्ड है, खुद ही क्वेश्चन लिख लो, खुद ही आंसर लिख लो. So that sort of a thing. So now you put it into perspective. India's entire World Cup was banked on their fitness.
yeah,
And ठीक है, we did not win the World Cup, but क्या होता है कि जब आप घर पे भी खेल रहे हो, why people are so proud of the team today that they still reach the final, and there's no anger, there is a hurt that they
yeah,
deserve more, that we as fans deserve more because of that 10-0.
yeah.
Because of the way we played, we were totally dominant till the final. So that respect, that love, that adulation came from there.
Yeah.
Imagine, and you're playing at home.
Yeah.
This is a home World Cup we are talking about. Imagine those three not being available. Imagine the kind of World Cup we would have had. और ये सारा वही effigies burn हो रही होती, वही processions निकल रहे होते, वही नारे लग रहे होते. We would have been back in the 80s and 90s. So, uh, in a way, like I said, the entire experimentation, the entire World Cup was banked on the fitness of these three players,
Yeah.
which is both a positive and a negative. A negative that आपके पास ये तीन player हैं, आपके पास backup ही नहीं है. You're Indian cricket for crying out loud. Like you have literally no backup. और वो चीज हमें अब टेस्ट क्रिकेट में दिखाई दे रही है. No backup. But the positive was that they came back on time. Like Srini said, that the NCA worked its wonders. That they came back ahead of time. They came back proper in form and everything. And individually speaking, they had a fabulous World Cup. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, before I move to the most important segment of the show, the 2023 World Cup, we have addressed the comebacks, the injuries, we have addressed the IPL, the WTC final, the Border Gavaskar Trophy, Rishabh Pant, and the void, and all the attempts to unsuccessfully still fill the void. Before moving on, I would like to request our viewers, if you have any questions or comments, please keep writing them down. We'll be taking all questions and comments towards the end of the show. We'll interact with you guys too. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do that right now. If you haven't clicked the bell icon yet, please do that right now again. We'll be honored and thankful for you to doing that. Now, just moving on to the World Cup, we can actually have a different show on the World Cup, but since we are like cramped for space and time and prime time viewing spot, I would say. So very quickly, all three of you like were there in some capacity or the other during the World Cup. Srini was mostly from the stands, taking in that vibe at the Narendra Modi Stadium. He was there at the Wankhede too. Chetan covered almost all games of India. No, he covered actually all the games. He was there in Bangalore too. So Chetan covered all games for India. Vineet covered the crucial games. He
Except
was
the
there.
Dharamshala game. But yeah.
Dharamshala nahi guys. Vineet was there in Dharamshala. He was there in Calcutta covering the non-India semi-final. I was there fortunately for the India games too. सबका कोई ना कोई वर्ल्ड कप मेमोरी था. अभी मैं यहाँ चाकू छुरी लेकर वो डाइसेक्ट नहीं करूंगा कैंपेन में व्हाट वेंट रॉन्ग व्हाट वेंट राइट. 10-0 के बाद श्रीनी का लाइन बोरो करूंगा. इतना तो कुछ खराब नहीं हुआ होगा. फाइनल की बात करनी है तो बहुत बार कर चुके हैं. वही रिकॉर्ड रिपीट नहीं कर रहे हैं. So quickly, Vineet covering the World Cup, being at the ground, taking in that vibe, soaking in that vibe. India World Cup in India after 12 long years. It was a long wait. 10 साल से ट्रॉफी नहीं आया वो छोड़ो, पर वर्ल्ड कप भी 12 साल बाद आया. 50 ओवर वर्ल्ड कप. How was that? Quickly, I'll take all three of your remarks before we move ahead to the IPL auction and the money matters.
Look, the vibe, as you mentioned, 12 years long await, World Cup had India were primed, to win this World Cup. The vibe was quite, expectant vibe tha. But I'll tell you this, I covered mostly the non-India games. And what I could see was, I was there in Hyderabad for 10 days. Pakistan played two games. Netherlands were playing two games. From an ODI landscape perspective, the buzz wasn't there, to be honest. If India were playing, good. Otherwise, not really. So even if whatever happened, yes, recently you had India Australia final being the most viewed in terms of TV ratings. So ICC ne nikala. But apart from that, if it is India, if it is Australia, what are the other teams doing? And despite the fact that Pakistan are playing in Hyderabad, yes, Pakistan fans and journalists were not able to be there due to security reasons and other things. But to be honest, the buzz for an ODI World Cup, for ODI cricket was lacking if India are not playing. That's my honest opinion there.
I think Vineet, you're very right in summing that up, because I clearly remember इंडिया वर्सेस ऑस्ट्रेलिया जो चेन्नई गेम था. वर्ल्ड कप तो पहले शुरू हो गया था, बट रियल वर्ल्ड कप तो दुनिया कह रही थी बॉस 9 अक्टूबर को चालू रहेगा, जब इंडिया विल टेक ऑन ऑस्ट्रेलिया इन चेन्नई. चेतन, यू वर देयर फॉर दैट गेम इन चेन्नई. हॉट, ह्यूमिड. We had different predictions and expectations from that run chase. But how was your World Cup? What was that one World Cup memory? Which I know you're not big fan of having those fan moments and boy moments, but आज for a change cricket जर्नलिस्ट का हैट छोड़ो, एक वो यंग लड़का दोबारा से बन जाओ. आई एम नॉट सेइंग यू आर ओल्ड राइट नाउ, बट जस्ट पुट दैट फैन हैट ऑन. वन वर्ल्ड कप मेमोरी व्हिच काइंड ऑफ स्टैंड्स आउट फॉर यू कि बॉस ये मजा आया.
So from that aspect, I'll just talk about Lucknow, because I've always wanted to visit Lucknow because of this World Cup. I've traveled across the world. I'm grateful for the opportunities that have come my way in the last 15 years. Um, so yeah, I've covered almost 300 international games. So I've been to many places. लेकिन हमेशा कोई ना कोई प्लेस होती है, कोई नया स्टेडियम होता है, कोई नया ग्राउंड होता है. एंड लखनऊ वाज दैट वन प्लेस दैट आई नेवर बीन. मतलब क्रिकेट देखने के लिए नहीं, वैसे भी लखनऊ नहीं गया मैं कभी. सो वेंट टू लखनऊ एंड ऑब्वियसली एंजॉय किया. पूरा सीन, वेंट टू ओल्ड लखनऊ मार्केट, कबाब्स एंड एवरीथिंग, और खचाखच भरा हुआ था.
Yeah,
एवरीबडी हैड
yeah,
डिसेंडेड ऑन टू लखनऊ. यू वर देयर, सो सो
yeah.
एवरीबडी हैड डिसेंडेड टू लखनऊ. एंड एवरीबडी को, सबको वहीं उसी दिन, सब जाके सबको उसी दिन कबाब खाने थे ऑब्वियसली.
Today kebab,
हाँ,
staple
सबको
almost.
हाँ, टुंडे कबाब में जाना. मैं गया था टुंडे कबाब में, पाँव रखने की जगह नहीं थी, मैं वापस आ गया. मैंने कहा कहीं और चलते हैं. Um, so yeah, I mean, it was nice, that vibe, ये that World Cup vibe. और ये World Cup vibe overseas में बहुत आई है. 15 World Cup, 19 World Cup, और भी World Cups जो किए हैं. So whenever there's an India game like 2022 में ऑस्ट्रेलिया में, Indians fans from all over the world just descend onto the place. तो वो
Yeah,
vibe इंडिया में कभी कभार मिसिंग होती है, क्योंकि you have a lot of locals coming there.
yeah,
लेकिन आई थिंक सही मायने में लखनऊ एक ऐसी जगह थी जहाँ पे मुझे वो वाइब आई, बिकॉज पीपल वर डिसेंडिंग फ्रॉम ऑल ओवर द प्लेस. It's easier getting to places like Mumbai and Bangalore and Delhi, straight connectivity. I met a few
yeah,
people who were from UK and they were traveling around, going to Lucknow, coming, and all of that.
yeah,
And then Lucknow Stadium, where we had a good game. India did not score a lot of runs that day, and we had a great bowling performance from our pacers. And the entire vibe of the
yeah,
ground, of the 30,000-40,000 people who were there. And the DJ was obnoxious and loud at the same time, the way we like our DJs, in North India, especially. So there was special fireworks, there was special laser work. That day, that match was a vibe. That was a, मतलब अगर मुझे एक मैच पिक करना हो पूरे उसमें से, I would pick that game for the vibe, for the वो feeling. And why I say that was because 2011 मुझे याद है, that was my first World Cup, and I covered all India matches, and I covered the final, and I remember the semi-final. I still can't forget 40,000 people singing Vande Mataram, A.R. Rahman's Vande Mataram, after India beat Pakistan in Mohali.
yeah,
Nothing tops that. Nothing tops that. The only memory that probably tops that was MCG pe 60,000 Indians singing Janagan Mana, India Pakistan mein. The only thing that comes close, really. But in terms of enjoyment, in terms of the vibe, a lot of Indian fans का अब एक traveling contingent बन गया है. The day in cricket got entry into the Olympics, I tweeted that LA is not ready for when India Pakistan happens at the Olympics.
yeah.
LA is not ready. The Olympics is not ready. They have never seen anything like that before. So वो vibe जो है, वो मुझे लखनऊ में मिली.
Lucknow.
I
I think
didn't get that anywhere.
I
I
think
didn't
I
get that. Sorry.
absolutely, I completely agree with you. I was
So
just
for
coming
me,
to the
that is the
Lucknow
one
part. Yeah,
standout memory.
yeah,
अगर क्रिकेट मेमोरी की बात करें तो obviously I'm not a big fan of individual honors, but Virat Kohli getting that 50th 100, that was a big moment, because these are moments that stand out. You know,
correct.
these are moments where you say I was there. Because who thought Sachin Tendulkar's records would be broken, right? Sachin Tendulkar is a god for a lot of us. And for him to break that record and to bow down to the original master, that was really heart touching. And that was a moment where I was there. And like you said, I'm not that young, I've covered a lot of cricket, but still I can say I was there. That was a great moment. Yeah.
I will completely agree with you, Chetan, for a change on the Lucknow front, because I felt Lucknow probably had the best vibe in the country. And the final, if they wanted to play final at a new facility with a lot of public, I think Lucknow, the stadium was much better alternative than hosting at the Narendra Modi Stadium, because that crowd was a dud. That people like sat like ducks. I think that the final deserved a better crowd than what we saw in Ahmedabad, and Lucknow was a different vibe. Srini, now quickly, I'll take your comment on the World Cup. You were there at the Wankhede. We were watching the game together, both India games, the India Lanka game and the India New Zealand semi-final, where we had a very animated banter with Chetan on the New Zealand run chase. So how was your World Cup, because you have covered games more than most of us, and so how was it? Just to see a World Cup actually come home, and 50 over format. A lot of things are already being said about the future and whether we'll actually have the 2027 World Cup or not. So keeping all those things in mind, do you see a future for this format from what you see in this World Cup?
Yeah. So in the I'll break this into what we saw on the field. What was the narrative of the field on the field? I mean, it was a brilliant World Cup for us. I mean, that one final, obviously, that one game which we had to win, we lost. I mean, and blame whoever we want to, but those 10 matches in the run up to the final was a dream. Yeah, like I enjoyed just, whether it was on the ground or on television. It was lovely. Mohammad Shami, for me, I mean, bowled his heart out this World Cup. Uh, but turned out to be a darling of all India fans. I mean, by the time we had made it to the final, and so many things. Heartbreak when Hardik bowed out because of the injury. Because they had, we so wish that in the final we had Hardik, and who knows, that game could have had a different result possibly. Uh, Rohit, kind of selfless batting, absolute selfless batting by Rohit Sharma, and less said the better. I just loved the way Rohit approached the World Cup. It was absolutely selfless. He just kind of ensure that it was his responsibility to give the team the kind of starts that were required, and I thought that was wonderful on his behalf. So this is where the cricket is concerned. Off the field, in the run up to the World Cup, much before the tournament had started, I had put out a tweet, and I don't think people on Twitter really understand what they say, because I really don't understand. They see things from a global perspective. Uh, every time you are hosting a tournament, playing a match, holding a tournament, whatever it is, somebody is cutting a check for it. There are no free lunches in life. Okay.
Yeah.
So every time that you are enjoying something on television or wherever, live or on streaming or wherever, somebody is footing the bill for it. And that is why you are getting to, kind of have some popcorn and enjoy the spectacle. So I had said this in the run up to the tournament that if this 50 over World Cup were not to be held in India, were to be held in any other cricketing destination, okay, the buzz would have possibly by now told you where the format lies.
Yeah.
It is only because the 50 over World Cup was in India, the one destination where cricket thrives like no other place, that we saw the kind of cheer that it brought. Which leads me to the next point that I made back then, is this is the last 50 over World Cup that you're watching. All right. Why so? I can list down half a dozen, kind of reasons. Please understand that, if you look at the global streaming game that is happening, global biggest players in the world, whether you are a Netflix or an Amazon or a Disney Hotstar or whoever it is, whatever business policies from a subscription standpoint that you have applied for the rest of the world, you have come down to realize it the hard way that in India it doesn't apply. In India, if you have to sustain your business at any level, it has to be an advertiser driven business. It can't be a subscription driven business, because the costs are way too low for any property to sustain, for any global property to sustain. And if it has to be an advertiser driven revenue, then you have to be very specific as to what exactly is that one product where you want your advertiser to come in and put top dollar. Because
Yeah.
see, the cost of buying the property on a rental basis, purchasing it on a rental basis, is going up, right? From whatever, from say 5,000 crores to 18,000 crores to 48,000 crores.
Yeah.
And next time IPL rights are sold, who knows? It will go past 70,000 crores, right? So the cost of purchasing a property on a rental basis is going high. Now, how exactly are you recovering that rent from the market? So globally, if an Amazon is putting money in the US market, they are recovering it by way of heavy subscription revenues. In America, the paying volume is way higher than any other country anywhere on earth, and that is why those numbers are probably sustainable. But from an India standpoint, no. I mean, आज आप 700 rupees अगर आप Netflix, Chetan had mentioned in one of the shows, I think, on our Cricket X platform, that if you are paying 700 rupees, 750 rupees for Netflix every month, then you are literally considered to be in, a certain income group for being able to afford that. So somebody had actually put out an Excel list of monthly, the monies that one average family on an average is paying for various subscriptions. आप ढूंढ लो, whether it's
Yeah,
Hotstar, Prime Video, Netflix, whatever, Z, Sony, Live, whatever it is. So that it is an unsustainable business, and that's why because it's an which is why the industry realized that there is no other choice but to make it into an advertiser driven business. If for example, it is something like Netflix is seriously considering now getting advertisements, getting commercials in between their shows, right?
yeah,
It is to that extent.
yeah,
So why am I explaining all this? Is because this advertiser driven model is not sustainable from a 7.5 hour, 8 hour perspective anymore. Why? Because it is, even in an India game,
yeah,
even when in India is playing a 50 over match, maybe not a World Cup game between India and Pakistan because that is as high as it gets. Even in India game is not making a cricket fan sit in front of the television for 7.5, 8 hours. It is not sustainable. It is just not sustainable. It is not possible. And from that aspect, the advertising model is just drying up. There is no money coming in. You unfortunately, a broadcaster is never going to open his mouth and say this to you.
yeah,
Kind of कौन कौन कोई धंधे वाला बोलता है क्या कि मैं घाटा कर रहा हूँ? You're not. ये तो वो होता नहीं है. So that is where it is not sustainable anymore, and this is the most obvious of plenty of other reasons, right?
yeah,
So in that, my attention span has shrunk from 7.5 hours to 4 hours. Today, if you are actually being very logical about it, and if you are part of the industry, you will realize that even 4 hours are fast becoming unsustainable. That is why we are talking about overrates. We are talking about crunching the game. If a sponsor, if a Tata IPL or whoever the official sponsor is of the game is paying 60 crore rupees per season to come on board as an official sponsor, you are waiting for the post-match ceremonies and all, no? When the trophy is given where
yeah,
your name appears at the back. If it appears at 11:30, 12 in the night, everybody's gone to sleep, half of the people have switched off the television. Is that value for money? That is where prime times are considered for a reason. And that prime time ends after a certain this thing. So, kind of this time limit is what is taking the essence out of 50 overs, which is why I had explained that this format is dead already. It's just that nobody has stepped up yet to say it loud and clear. To
yeah,
my mind, 50 over cricket is dead. I'm saying I'll be very surprised if the 2027 World Cup actually happens in the 50 over format. It may not. It can actually turn into a T20 format. You look at the next year's Champions Trophy. 50 over, it's
yeah.
anyway, it is not going to happen in Pakistan. Wherever it happens, the idea of a 50 over cricket is dead. People might have their problems in what I'm saying, but then that doesn't change certain facts.
I don't want to
No,
elongate the show, but I had a few different points. But ठीक है, it's okay.
कल
So
करेंगे, कल करेंगे. अभी हम
we
थोड़ा
will have,
साल का.
I mean, obviously, we'll have a lot of things going to happen in 24, as
Correct.
Srini said. So we'll obviously have more shows.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So,
We'll do a show on what to expect.
yeah,
What are
what to expect in
what are we
2020?
looking at in the year
Yeah.
to come? Yep.
So last 10 minutes of our this extended broadcast, very quickly I'll touch upon the IPL auction. I wish we had more time and we could have spoken in detail, which we already did during our entire day live stream on auction day, where both me, Srini and Chetan were present from the studios. But the IPL auction was a maddening affair, as most many auctions are, where auction dynamics also go for a toss. So Mitchell Stark, Pat Cummins, the kind of bidding which went for them, someone like a Samir Rizvi going for top dollar there. Daryl Mitchell, Spencer Johnson, all these guys, Spencer Johnson, Samir Rizvi, was anyone expecting them to be around the 10 crore mark? I wasn't. Daryl Mitchell, 14 crores. Vineet's smile probably says that all. But we'll give this a quick skip now, because 100 bids for 24 crore. That was so. we'll be getting that story out on Cricket Next very soon, most likely by tomorrow afternoon, where we have carefully analyzed how many bids actually went into a Mitchell Stark bid, how many bids went into a Samir Rizvi bid, because his base price was the basis price 20 lakh, and from there to 8.4 crores, 59 bids, Spencer Johnson 61 bids, Daryl Mitchell 67 bids. So it was a fascinating study which was done by our man behind the scene, Bansal Shah. So we'll be connecting the dots and pulling it out into a beautiful story for tomorrow for you guys to see before we actually close the year. Now, moving on, K. Srinivas Rao's favorite subject, money matters, business matters. What happened in the BCCI, what the balance sheets are saying. We'll not go too much into detail, but Srini, it was a big year. I'll come to the next point, which is women's cricket after this. But for that, women's cricket piece to fall into place, a lot dependent a lot was dependent on what happened behind the scenes. The Viacom TV rights deal, Adidas coming on board, Dream 11 coming on board, IDFC coming on board, then that court matter with Byju's, the coffers will fill up again. For women's cricket piece to fall into place, for it to get the funding which he did, the pay parity thing falling into place, the Women's Premier League. So if you could just talk about what Viacom coming on board and the amount which we saw coming to BCCI's account after that deal. They'll be broadcasting the entire Indian cricket calendar now, domestic calendar. So it's a big deal to happen. And in addition to that, they are the digital streaming partners for the Indian Premier League too. So how does it kind of change? I wouldn't say change, but affect the Indian cricket ecosystem, so to say. With Viacom coming on board and pumping in so much money.
So anybody who's knows anything about numbers in cricket will know that Viacom 18 is not going to really make up for the investment that they made in women's cricket. They paid 953 crores to buy the rights, and we saw the first ever inaugural women's Premier League, which I think was a wonderful thing for for the women in sport, women in cricket globally. From a global standpoint, it was until last year. This was almost like, can this be possible to, in a span of less than a year, it was like an actual possibility. The BCCI made it happen. Pay parity obviously was a very strong statement, but all said and done, somebody had to come and put money on the table, right? Somebody had to come and put money on the table and so say, all right, boss, here I'm taking the first step forward to see what can be done in the best interest of women's cricket. And that's where a lot of people do a lot of things, kind of say a lot of things. But as I said earlier in the show, somebody has to eventually cut the check for, somebody else's party. That's how parties happen. And for this, full marks to Viacom 18, full marks to them for stepping up, coming to the table and saying, here is the check for the next 5 years. Please go ahead and build this property. Even if they are probably not going to make up for the entire, monies that is going to like kind of come out of it. They will not be able to recover the entire cost, which they know. It's not like it's like an iron opener for them. They know more than anyone else that it'll be a tough task recovering this money from the market. And I think that is where it stood out. The year stood out because somebody was willing to come on board and say, listen, I know I'm not going to make money out of it, but fine, this is what I'm doing in the best interest of women's cricket. Likely Tata's coming on board as title sponsors after what happened. Vivo went out. There's no way Tata's would have made money out of what extra will Tata's get out of coming on title. So some things have gone beyond the realm of just coming and making money, and I think that's where corporate India kind of stood along with the BCCI. And those were some of the best things to happen. And today we are discussing. I mean, I keep getting calls from the people in the ecosystem saying, "Hey, when is WPL starting?" And there is a bit of excitement. And thanks to people who have actually, the stakeholders, that everything has been possible. Now the question is obviously after 5 years how BCCI ends up building on this property and take it forward. But then again, as I said, we can talk about it in our next show in terms of what our next year is going to be like. But what happened, fascinating, very fascinating.
Again, it was a very eventful year for the Indian women's cricket team. The WPL was definitely that game changing
Landmark,
moment.
I would say,
Yeah.
landmark development in terms of
Yeah.
making the WPL happen.
Yeah, there are talks underway at the BCCI right now whether they want to have it in a home and away format or just to target the tier two cities, taking the women's game forward and not just restricting it to Mumbai, the DY Patil and the Wankhede, which was the case last time around. And if you haven't seen, Cricket Next did an amazing series of the WPL where our reporters Kanav Bali and Taus Rizvi are present for most of the matches, bringing you action from ground zero, something which we promised you at the start of 2023, and hope we have delivered our promise from bringing you the game from ground zero with familiar faces like you're seeing right now on the screen. Now, वुमेन्स क्रिकेट बहुत बातें हुई थी. I'll quickly like sum it up in a statement. कोच था, कोच नहीं था, रमेश फवाद exit, अमोल मजूमदार coming on board after a long and eventful period of suspense and drama. But those two test wins against Australia and England in Mumbai, I think probably sums up the year on the right note for us. We are seeing that there's interest for test cricket in the women's game too, and it was fascinating to see our girls in action win those two games. And that selfie of, I think, Jamina Rodriguez, who took that selfie lying flat on the ground, which became one of the most viral images of the year. So it was heartening to see, and I hope we continue in similar fashion and corporates continue to pump in money to keep the game in good health. Now, moving on to our final segment of the show, which is the fan question, where as we promised at the start, we'll be taking questions and comments from what you said. I'm not touching on the Boxing Day test because I think we have had enough in the last 2 days talking and discussing, so we don't want to bore you to death and talking about the same thing over and over again. We'll move to the test series again when the preparations get underway, which they already are at the Super Park. India had a practice session today where most of the players did attend and train. So we'll keep that aside for a different show and a different segment. But right now, the closing remarks, the fan comments. So if I would request my producer to kind of just pop up those questions, and we can take them one at a time. Okay, on this day, MS Dhoni retired from Test cricket. Many would have memories of that thing. Chetan, you were there, as you always are. Game number 238, 239. ये भी बताओ.
I mean, that was my first year of overseas coverage, so not that far ahead. Um, so I remember MS Dhoni. He came for the press conference, and yeah, match had been drawn. Why press conference में उन्होंने अपने jokes मारे. सुनंदन लेले हैं उन्होंने. I think पेटा और डॉग्स की टेल के बारे में कुछ उन्होंने टिप्पणी की. He made a joke about it. He made a joke about DRS. He made a joke about a few things. Normal, कुछ भी नहीं. And हम लोग गए, हम लोग transcribe कर रहे थे. And email आ गया. MS Dhoni has announced retirement. At that moment, I knew I'm not sleeping that night.
Yeah.
It was almost it was almost 9 p.m. and I knew कि आज रात मेरे नसीब में सोना नहीं लिखा है. And then we finished that, and then we rushed to the team hotel. People were rushing there. I was like, क्यों जाना है वहाँ पे? तुमको क्या लग रहा है? क्या comments मिलने वाले हैं? There was no comments, and then we had so many stories to file. I remember I went to bed at around 5 a.m. and I had an afternoon flight the next day to Sydney to watch the fireworks. And then once I reached Sydney, I was able to get some comments from Ravi Shastri about the retirement. And I saw MS Dhoni sitting in an Indian restaurant in Sydney near my hotel. He was sitting with Suresh Raina. Test match chal raha hai, or he was there just enjoying Indian food. He was like, yeah, Marindas. Good days. But yeah, he's just like that. He just never lets us sleep, right?
Yeah.
You know that whenever he retires, you're going to have a sleepless night.
If we could have another question, if the Indian cricket can't win matches on sports
Right.
television,
One quick thing.
yeah,
When Chetan said that when he saw the press release, he thought like he knew that I'm not going to sleep tonight. Just speaking from there, next year, 2015 World Cup again in Australia, India lost that semi-final to Australia, right? And MS Dhoni came for the press conference, and I remember the media in the press box was like, boss, is any press release coming? Please tell us now.
Please tell us.
Don't want
And Gautam
another-
Bhattacharya, and the legendary Gautam Bhattacharya's first question was to MS about his retirement and all.
If there is any press release coming, you tell us now. We don't want any last minute thing. We don't want to
Yeah.
go sleepless for another night. So
Yeah.
yeah. If we could have that question again, please.
Yeah.
Vineet, I would like you to take this one because you have seen some unfriendly pitches, during the Border Gavaskar Trophy. What do you make of all this buzz around the pitch? So much talk.
Look, it's just the buzz, right? It is just the buzz. As Srini mentioned earlier, look, the home advantage is not something to be scorned upon. Just to put it simply, I mean that's it's an advantage. That's it's a term in itself. You know, you every team tries to take the advantage. The important thing is whether the home team can take the advantage. You know, that's the important thing. So I mean, it's a buzzword. There's nothing more that you can talk about. I mean, it comes back to that same old thing. You know, if the ball is moving around, seaming around, do you say, you know, that's an bad pitch in England, or it's an average pitch? You don't do that, right? That kind of criticism doesn't occur outside. It only happens here only, and that's of course by the foreign media, touring media. So it's just a word. I mean, as Srini mentioned, it adds to the theater of that series and everything. But to be honest, home advantage, it
Who
is
gets
nothing
to
to be
decide
scorned
कि क्या sports friendly pitch है? Who gets to
yeah,
decide
that's
that?
what we decided. If the 22 players are in the middle,
Mumbai,
they'll play well,
2012 में,
they'll do well.
2012 में Mumbai was a turning wicket.
Yeah,
2012 में Mumbai was a turning wicket. Kevin Peterson played one of the greatest knocks by an English
absolutely.
batsman.
Yeah,
And Monty Panesar and Graham Swan turned the
Graham
ball
Swan.
better than Ravichandran Ashwin and Harbhajan Singh. And I think
No, we had Oja also.
Pragyan Oja. I
Yeah.
mean, I was having a chat with Ravi Shastri. He said, India bowled like shit. Batting to chhod do. He
Yeah.
told me clearly, India bowled like shit. So who gets to decide on a spin friendly wicket? Kevin Peterson smashed the ball everywhere. Who gets to decide कि क्या sports friend? What do you mean sports friendly wicket? ये कहाँ लिखा है कि पहले 2 दिन बैट्समैन होना चाहिए, फिर थर्ड डे पहले 2 दिन स्विंग होनी चाहिए, फिर थर्ड डे बैटिंग होनी चाहिए, फिर लास्ट 2 डे स्पिन होनी चाहिए? गेट आउट ऑफ योर कल्नियल हैंगओवर माइंडसेट. किसी अंगोरे ने बताया क्या तुम्हें ये ऐसा होना चाहिए? कुछ नहीं
Srini,
मतलब,
I'll take your
कुछ नहीं.
comment on this before Chetan gets more angry. KSR sir is in the history pitch doctoring happened. I think he means whether pitch doctoring has happened in the past too. Doctoring is a very strong word, but yeah.
Yeah.
Srini.
और आपको अगर इंग्लिश में प्रॉब्लम है लिखने में, आप हिंदी में लिखिए, हमको समझ आ जाएगा. आप
Yeah, yeah,
आप
please go ahead.
आप जो जिस
Any language.
लैंग्वेज में कंफर्टेबल है उस लैंग्वेज में लिखिए.
Punjabi भी चलेगा. Srini, you're not audible.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Pitch doctoring, you know, let me, I don't know what better example, but this comes to mind, so I'm saying it. Like I always said, match fixing as a term, okay, is a stupid term. आप मैच फिक्स नहीं कर सकते. कोई भी आप अपने आपका एक 5x5 का कमरा आप एम्प्टी करो और उसमें आप प्लास्टिक बॉल और प्लास्टिक का बैट लो, खेलो 5 ओवर और बोलो कि मैं 5 ओवर का एग्जैक्ट हर ओवर का हर बॉल मैं डिसाइड करूंगा, मैं हाउ आई वांट टू काइंड ऑफ तो और मैं 5 ओवर आपको फिक्स करके दिखाता हूँ. आप कर सकते हो? आप नहीं कर सकते हो. सो इन फ्रंट ऑफ हंड्रेड्स एंड थाउजेंड्स ऑफ पीपल, where millions of people are watching you on television, where there are bloody a dozen cameras looking at everything, you are saying that I'm going to fix an entire game? That doesn't happen. What happens is, where corruption in the game happens, you fix scenarios, you fix situations, right? That's what happens. That's where the word evolved into spot fixing or whatever. Fixing corruption, let's stick to the likewise. Pitch doctoring जो है, what is pitch doctoring? It's like me standing with a gardener, एक मेरे बगीचे में, मैं घर के पीछे मेरा बगीचा है, मैं अपने बगीचे में खड़ा हूँ, अपने माली के साथ खड़ा हूँ, मैं अपने माली को बोल रहा हूँ और खोद और पानी डाल. माली कह रहा है साहब इससे ज्यादा मत खोदो, पेड़ गिर जाएगा. मैं कह रहा हूँ नहीं तू खोद, मेरे को पता है, मेरे को ऐसा ही चाहिए, तू खोद. ठीक है? When you tend to overdo something in order to what you did in Indore, okay, what you did in Indore, right? When bad goes to worse and when you don't know how to keep things in control, that is where it begins to kind of border on the whole idea of something getting doctored, like you not knowing where to draw a line. Having said that, I have never ever had a problem with a home team deciding what they want to do in terms of deriving an advantage. I don't see any reason why this should not happen. Otherwise, the very idea, the term test in test cricket is dead. Then what exactly are you playing for? अगर मुझे एक हाईवे ही बनाना है तो उस वर्ड टेस्ट को हटा दो फिर. Then why exactly do we remember Sachin Tendulkar's innings in Perth? when he was, this young 17-year-old boy, because we know what kind of conditions in which he got that century. We know what happened when these great players traveled. We know what players, how they struggled when they came to India and could not play on spinning track. 2001, that series we are so proud about
Yeah.
in India, in Kolkata, that test match where we won, after kind of falling behind by an innings. Harbhajan Singh got us back into that game in both those innings with the kind of spells that he had, right. I mean, I remember I was an intern at that time. I remember speaking with Harbhajan start of the season and asking him, like, what is that? Who's that one Australian batsman you think you'll be targeting, in this series? He said Ricky Ponting. He's such a good player, but I really want to see how well he does on turning Indian tracks. That is Harbhajan. I had a interview with him, and you look at, he literally became Harbhajan's money in that series.
And
So
Ricky Ponting has never done well in India.
exactly, exactly my point. Harbhajan was a young guy at that time, and Ricky Ponting was beginning to have a stature as a batter, and he said, "This is a guy I'm going to target. This is a guy I'm going to, like, kind of, and he literally found out for clear that what were Ricky Ponting's strengths when it came to playing in India, right? So I'm saying there is nothing wrong in playing to your advantage. Why should you give Ricky Ponting a pitch that he loved batting on? Right? Similarly, when we travel abroad, the template is set for us. हमको बताया
Yeah.
जाता है कि बेटा आ जाओ, there is a green track waiting for you, which is exactly what happened when we went to Brisbane. If you look at the narrative around Saurav Ganguly, all right, the 2003-4 of series tour of Australia, शॉट खेल ही नहीं सकता है, शॉर्ट बॉल नहीं खेल सकता है, he runs away from short balls, he runs away from this thing. That Brisbane 144 is priceless. It is priceless, kind of in the way that it set the template. So I'm saying, to cut a long story short, doctoring is just an overused term. It's about not knowing where to draw a line.
Yeah. Agreed. Doctoring is a very, very strong term to use, because you can only control the surface this much. उसके बाद तो lottery है, कैसा उस दिन condition होगा और कैसा निकलेगा. Just like we saw the lottery fail in Ahmedabad on November 19th. Can we have the next question, if any, please? We'll quickly take those, and as many as we can in the last couple of minutes now. Only thing I think he's talking about Pat Cummins. Let's see what happens, because he could well lead Sunrisers Hyderabad, as we did say during the IPL auction.
Yeah.
If we can have the next question, sir. Okay, Chetan sir. Srini ने तो ना कर दिया. Chetan sir, आप क्या
I want to wrap up things quickly, so the short answer is no.
Next, please. Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
We
yes.
agree with you,
Wonderful.
Mr. KK.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Yes. Great positives. Yes. भाई इसके लिए टाइम नहीं है.
They're being a bit honest here. Let's be very clear. I mean, they're just being honest. We are not being honest about a lot of things. We are hiding behind a lot of this thing. We have skeletons in the cupboard which we are refusing to address. Australia is very clear about addressing those. I mean, look at Pat Cummins, Mitchell Starc, classic example. Nahi khelna hai IPL. There are other priorities to do. Finish that, come back, take your money from the IPL. They know that they've achieved so much that money will come when it has to. So that's a very long answer, but cut it short.
When you say transparency, I'll tell you something. मैं आपको बताता हूँ. अभी एक साल ही हुआ है. Last year I was there in Australia for the T20 World Cup, and I was in Perth. And, I was staying with this very nice family उनके Airbnb में, and obviously Justin Langer from Western Australia. So there's this connection, and they're like, we don't like this Australian team. Literally, there were no fans in the Australian matches and all. And look, in 1 year, how much they have changed it. That Australian team under Pat Cummins is loved across the country because they've been transparent about what they're doing. They've been transparent about their selections, their strategies, their everything, their captaincy. क्यों coach में change हुआ, क्या हुआ? They've taken time, they've performed on the field. And that's why and Australia is a very, very sports loving society. From a very, very small age, they get into sports. It's a very, very different culture. आप वहां जाते हो ना, आपको खुद शर्म आ जाती है कि नहीं यार, पतला हो जाता हूँ जब तक मैं ऑस्ट्रेलिया में हूँ 3 हफ्ते के लिए. ठीक है? It's like that, and they're very, very sports loving. उनका culture is very, very different from our culture. For them, sports is a way of life. Becoming a sports person is an actual dream of a lot of youngsters. जैसे हमारे यहाँ पे parents बोलते हैं ना, डॉक्टर बन जाओ, इंजीनियर बन जाओ. वहाँ पे becoming a sports person is an actual life goal of a lot of people. So it's a very very different culture altogether, and that is why they are able to excel to the
Yeah.
extent that they are.
Last question, if I'm not wrong.
हमारी जरूरत तो नहीं है ना. Bye bye. Happy New Year. आप आंसर
I,
कर
Yeah,
सकते
I,
हैं.
yeah, it's it.
I
Yeah.
have no
Happy New
idea
Year to
about what
everyone,
it
to all
is,
our viewers,
but
and keep answering, and
Kohli
we'll see
was
you.
Virat. Was,
Yeah,
I, no,
2024.
I have no idea about whether he wanted to was keen on having a young vice captain. I have no idea. But things happened too suddenly for Virat. I don't think he had the time to plan anything from
Plan
a
succession plan उस time पे कैसे
previous.
करता? I think बहुत abrupt.
Things
Yeah,
things happened way too abruptly and way too early. I believe that his test captaincy should have remained untouched, and he should have continued being the captain. You know, white ball, I agree. The time had come for him to give it up, but red ball captaincy, no chance. He had to continue.
yeah.
And as I said the other day, we are going to feel the backlash of he giving up his test captaincy. We are going to continue seeing it over the next 2 years. Disaster is written all over.
So if we can take one last question, I think Vineet would want to answer. Who's the captain of Afghanistan series? अभी किसी को नहीं पता भाई. Surya injured है. Hardik is more or less not likely to play. Ruturaj
हार्दिक
Gaikwad.
मोर और लेस नहीं है, नहीं हार्दिक नहीं खेलेगा.
Bumrah.
ऋतुराज गायकवाड़ आई थिंक अगर फिंगर इंजरी ठीक हो जाता है
बुमराह.
T20 खेलेगा वो.
हाँ,
इंग्लैंड
इंग्लैंड
सीरीज से पहले
को खिलाएंगे उसे.
इंग्लैंड टेस्ट सीरीज नहीं खिलाएंगे ये.
हाउ मेनी T20s are we playing?
3 T20s. 3 T20s.
हाँ, तो कोई सूर्या या श्रेयस या जो भी फिट रहेगा.
सूर्य
फिट होगा उस हिसाब से, जो भी फिट है उस हिसाब से.
आई थिंक इफ
अच्छा यार 2024 की प्रॉब्लम है, 2024 में निपटेंगे.
24 में डील करेंगे. लास्ट क्वेश्चन, इफ वी हैव एनी मोर क्वेश्चन फॉर विनीत, वन लास्ट क्वेश्चन, वन लास्ट चांस फॉर आवर प्रोड्यूसर. क्विकली डू वी हैव अ
Okay, time
क्वेश्चन?
is up.
He's searching.
In fact, I'll have a question, a wish list before we go. I really think KL Rahul should lock number 3 or number 5 spot. I think he has locked that number 5 spot, hasn't he? In the ODIs, in the white ball format, he has locked that number 5 spot. There's no.
I think Vineet वो टेस्ट की बात कर रहा है. I think टेस्ट का.
Difficult, I'd say. Still say, I mean, the kind of the form that he is in, number 5 looks ideal for him. Number 3, you already have Gill, the kind of template that you saw in that the South Africa first test. That's the kind of template they're going forward with. Gill at number 3 makes sense. So KL Rahul at number 5 again makes sense for me.
आशीष मनी तिवारी एक टची क्वेश्चन पूछ रहे हैं मेरा मन लेने का. राहुल द्रविड़ कंटिन्यूइंग, कोई ऑप्शन ही नहीं है भाई, कोई सोच ही नहीं रहा है. राहुल द्रविड़ ही रहने वाले हैं. अब जितना बेड़ा गर्क होना है, स्यापा होना है, इन्हीं के साथ होना है. हैप्पी न्यू ईयर ऑन दैट. So that was it. Thank you everyone for tuning in, watching this special broadcast. As we had promised at the start of 2023, storytelling will go to a different level at Cricket Next, and I hope and wish that we have kind of delivered to your expectations. We tried our level best. We had sleepless nights, hard-working days, long weeks, but we did not complain because we want to bring the best of the content for you across platforms, written content, video content, and we'll be venturing into different spaces when it comes to 2024. Very exciting year when it comes to Indian cricket. We have 5 tests at home against England. We have a full IPL. After that, then we have some interesting away assignments too. So you stay tuned to Cricket Next because we have promised that you won't miss a ball with us. Cricket मतलब Cricket Next. चेतन को अगर हमने हंसा दिया साल के एंड में तो हमने कुछ तो ठीक किया ही होगा यार. So on that note,
T20 वर्ल्ड कप कहना भूल गया. I was like, ये कोई सोच ही नहीं रहा है T20 वर्ल्ड कप के बारे में.
It's in US.
असाइनमेंट क्या होता है? इसे T20 वर्ल्ड कप. इसे T20 वर्ल्ड कप. इसलिए हंसी आ गई. कोई नहीं सोच रहा है. गया वर्ल्ड कप.
No, मैं थोड़ा इंडिया और विद इन बजट वाली चीजें सोच रहा था. So on that note, a very happy new year to all you gentlemen, and we will probably sync up very soon with our special domestic show which we had promised, and we'll bring that to you on what future holds in domestic cricket for India. Our Ranji Trophy is starting from January 5. The squads are already coming up. It's a very important year when it comes to Ranji Trophy because you're in a fresh test cycle. The next gen of test cricketers will be looked at and identified from this premier domestic competition. So you stay tuned. We'll bring you all the updates. Chetan is still smiling, so we are doing something right. On that note, Happy New Year. Take care. Be safe.